This
Committee meeting.
conference will now be recorded.
Remind folks, as the notification just said, that it's being recorded. And are there any public comments from the group as we move through today's agenda? Certainly willing to entertain any of those if folks have those. Seeing and hearing none, we can move forward to approval of the January 12th minutes, which you were sent to, all sent in a previous email when you signed up. Are there any questions, concerns, or needed changes that the group sees before we would entertain a motion to accept those minutes? Seeing and hearing none of those, I'd entertain a motion to.
Guy Corbisiero, I move to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, is there a second?
Jackson, second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Sounds unanimous. Let's move forward to the discussion item number 4 on the list, 2023 through 2026 TIP, discussion of the draft amendment number 2 first that was also sent to the group. Thank you, Brad, for putting that up there. Brad, do you want to take, or is that Brian? Are you going to take us through that?
I'm going to do the TIP amendment right now. I'm sure you may recall last month we talked about what was known as TIP amendment number 1 from the Transit Authority relating to some projects and so forth. And during the comment period for TIP amendment number 1, Mark did give us a comment that ended up changing the dollar figures on a couple of projects and adding a new project to the list. And as we discussed at the JTC, typically something like that triggers the definition of a major adjustment or major change to the draft document. And because of that, it should be put out for another public review and comment period. And we made that recommendation to the MPO at their meeting back on the 19th, I believe it was, the week after the MJTC. The MPO reviewed it and discussed it, and Mart also presented at the meeting. And they asked that it not go out for another 21-day public review and comment, but we treat the original draft amendment number 1 as alone, as a standalone item, and that the changes they put in the comment, which are reflected on the file you see on the screen right now, that we consider that amendment number 2 to the FFY 2022 element of the TIP. So the MPO agreed with that course of action. So they endorsed TIP amendment number 1, and they took the comments from Mart and developed TIP amendment number 2. You see the 2 projects highlighted in yellow. Those had cost changes implemented to them from what had been in number 1, and the green new project added in the amendment also, amendment number 2. So basically this became a standalone amendment, and then it went out for public comment beginning exactly, when did it begin? It began on Tuesday, January 25th, and it closes on Monday, February 14th. To date, we have not received any comments one way or the other on amendment number 2, but it seems to reflect what needs to be done on the Mart side. Mark did mention these changes were a reflection of a meeting with Mass DOT and the need for the state to spend out some RTA cap funds. So Mart had the ability to move a few projects around and meet those requirements for the state. So that's why they made the comment. So basically what we're looking at is a new TIP amendment. And as I said, we have no comments from anyone at this point. And we're accepting comments today at the MJTC meeting. And then we'll look for a recommendation to be made to the MPO, who will be meeting next week. Yeah, in a nutshell, that's the TIP amendment number 2.
Is there any discussion from members that are present today on submitting that recommendation to the MPO in that fashion, where that change would become amendment number 2? Certainly, the floor is open for discussion.
Any questions? So we would look for consensus from the JTC to recommend that the MPO endorse what is known as TIP amendment number 2 at their meeting next week. Is there any opposition to that consensus? Does not appear so.
Beth, I saw your microphone was open. Did you want to say something?
No, but thank you. I was just turning it off to cut down the background noise. Thanks.
You're welcome. I think, Brad, if there's no opposition, I think that we would make that recommendation to the MPO in that form that you presented, and
Okay.
I would suggest that it would be unanimous because there's no opposition here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 5, the 2023 slash or dash through the 2027 transportation improvement or TIP program listing. You are all, of course, emailed that. And do we have Brad or Brian?
Will be leading
Okay,
that
Brian.
discussion.
Yep.
Brian, you're going to take it from here and give us some updates for the changes?
Sure. Yep. I'm just
Thank
going
you.
to talk a little bit about the development in the last month or so, just a short update. And then we have some presenters from the town of Clinton on their reconstruction of Route 62 project. So just quickly, there haven't been too many major developments in the last month, but I just wanted to provide the group with, first of all, this is our transportation evaluation criteria score sheet, which we use to score all of our projects. And this is really, without getting into too much detail, informational purposes for the group. If there's any town that wishes to go over the score sheet with their projects, we're always welcome to do that. This is where we look at projects' effect on the facility's condition, the mobility, any effect that it may have on roadway congestion, the safety. We will look at crash statistics, community effects and support, where we look at some, any support by any local governments or the effect on local populations that it may have. We look at land use and economic development, where we look at things like would the project have an effect on, say, job access or job creation, and environmental effects. And again, I just wanted to make sure the group had this blank TEC score sheet so they can reference it as they see fit. This is sort of our world of projects for the target section of the TIP. And again, as I mentioned at the last few meetings, the target section is where we have discretion at the MPO to schedule projects. There's also the statewide project listing and the transit project listing that's going to be on the TIP. So this has each project that are eligible for the target funds. And as you can see, we have the corresponding TEC scores in this particular list. TEC being one of 3 major things we look at when placing a project. Design status is one of the main things, and we also have to consider cost as well. So the major development that happened in the last few weeks since we last met is we got our target allocations for each federal fiscal year. And some really good news on that front is due to the bipartisan infrastructure legislation that passed a few months ago, we have seen some significant increases in our target funds this go around for the TIP. You can see this is a comparison of the current 2022 through 2026 TIP target numbers on the left-hand column, and our new 23 through 26 TIP update on the right. And we're looking at about an increase of approximately $2 million per year from what we assumed last year. So that'll help significantly. So this is the target project listing we've been looking at for the last few months. Again, these projects are listed the way they currently are on the 22 through 26 tip. And as I mentioned, that the major development has been the increase in the target funds. It's a fiscally constrained document, so we can't schedule projects over that target allotment. As you can see, the highlighted target number in each federal fiscal year is given, and the balance left over below that green. So in 2023, we have a balance left over of approximately $2.4 million. And in 24, 25, and 26, again, we're about $2 million under the target. So that allows us a lot of room to move around. Typically, we see costs increased, although we haven't seen many so far this year. We can always anticipate something happening. 2027, our new year. Typically, we have this as a blank slate. However, this year we have the second funding year of our Harvard resurfacing and box widening project carried over from 2026. So there's a little bit less room than we normally would have, but again, with the increased target allotments, we're looking at about $4.5 million left over in 2027. Yesterday we met with Mass DOT and we discussed many of these projects, their statuses and whatnot, and there are some developments that we anticipate having to deal with, and especially next month, the majority of the conversation will be about scenarios which we'll look at moving forward as we schedule projects in this update. One of the major developments we may be looking at is this in 2023 Westminster rehab and box widening on 140, project 607432. And due to some environmental constraints and some right-of-way issues, we may have to look at moving this project out of 2023 and into a later year, which of course would free up a lot of money in 2023. However, that will likely make it difficult in later years when it comes to fitting in projects, and we'll be likely looking at a project that will be ready in time to schedule in 2023. So you can anticipate maybe a scenario next month where we look at moving that project out, but that remains to be seen. We'll have additional discussions with people at Mass DOT and see exactly what needs to be done. Moving down to the appendix projects, there's a number of these projects we've identified as due to their status and the design of each project. We've identified a number of them that we'll be looking to move forward into a fiscal year. Of note is the air intersection improvements, Crescent Street and Chestnut Hill Ave, that's 608723. Currently at 75%. We've identified this as a project that will likely be eligible to move forward among many others, including the Clinton reconstruction of Sterling Street, Route 62. The projects at the bottom of this list are the new projects this year. We did not include these in the last tip update, so we're in the process of scoring these projects and just trying to determine, sort of how fast they will develop, and we'll keep an eye on that. So those are new projects this year. That's really all I have for today. Next month we'll be talking about possible scenarios of funding, and the idea is in March to have some recommendation by the JTC to the MPO on a scenario for funding the target projects. If there's any questions on the target section, I can take those. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to, I believe, Tom Bigelow. Will you be doing the presentation on Route 62 project?
Yes, I will. Chris McGowan from the town is on here as well, and I think he's going to do a little bit of an introduction. And I do have a PowerPoint. I just need permission to share my screen, and I can throw that up as well.
Okay, great.
All right, Chris McGowan here from the town of Clinton, Mass. DPW. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Chris.
Yes, you can.
Good. I don't know if you can see me. Hang on, I'm having issues here. Okay. So this is a project in basically downtown Clinton, which is a pretty small town, but it's one of our main feeder roads into our town, Sterling Street. And the town in the past 5 or so years has been very aggressive in trying to get all of our kind of our feeder roads in our downtown area rehabilitated. We recently completed a very large downtown rehabilitation with a little bit of state funding and a lot of town funding. So the town's committing a lot of our own resources to getting our roads more walkable, drivable, and more enjoyable to drive down. Sterling Street is the main way into town from the Leominster, Sterling, Fitchburg area, and it's not in very good shape at all, and it's kind of next on our list of important projects to get the town to where we're looking to go with it. Like I said, in the past several years, we've done a lot of work with our own money. We've in the past have relied almost solely on Chapter 90 money, but we've made a real big effort to supplement that and go after as many of these types of TIP projects. And we've done mass work projects, and we're really being aggressive, and this is our next stage. So I'll turn it over to Tom with that.
Yes, thank you, Chris. So we have a PowerPoint here that I'm just showing. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. So just to remind everyone, the project is along 2,500 feet of Sterling Street, and it starts at the intersection of Willow Road and Lawrence Street, and ends at the intersection of Sterling Street and Main Street. And it also encompasses the intersection of Sterling Street and Greeley Street, and Brook Street as well. The roadway is town maintained, and it's an urban principal arterial that's on the National Highway System. And Greeley Street, as it was noted at the last time we were in front of the committee, is an HSIP cluster intersection. The pavement is in poor, deteriorated condition, and that's evident by some photos that we have, and is due to some heavy truck traffic. Some of that traffic has increased due to the recent change where the town of Clinton worked with Mass DOT to redesignate this section of Sterling Street as Route 62. That Route 62 was previously Brook Street between Sterling Street and Main Street. So the reason for that change is because Sterling Street is the most direct access to Main Street for those users on Route 62 heading west to Lancaster and east to Berlin. And improvements are needed along the roadway to be commensurate with this roadway type and use. So we have some existing condition photos. Here on the left, you can see that the sidewalk is overgrown. There's really substandard bicycle and pedestrian accommodations up and down the roadway, and vegetation contributes to some limited sight distance. On the right here, you can see more evidence of the poor pedestrian accommodations, substandard bicycle accommodations, and pavement condition of the roadway. The next slide here has some pictures closer to the Greeley Street intersection. Again, you can see the poor pavement condition, deteriorated sidewalk, and substandard bike and ped accommodations. And on the photo on the right, you can even see some of the rutting that is apparent due to some of the heavy truck traffic traveling up and down Sterling Street. So the goals of the project are to address the safety issues along the corridor and upgrade Sterling Street to be commensurate with its new Route 62 designation. With also the goal of providing a complete street, which I'm sure everyone's aware, not only accommodates the motorists, but the pedestrians and the bicyclists. And while we're doing that, take the opportunity to improve the pavement conditions, improve drainage infrastructure, and tying back into the complete streets aspect of the project, improve access management where there are a number of wide driveways. This area did have historically some industrial uses which did not lend itself to access management the way a lot of those driveways were designed and constructed. So we have some typical sections which include basically throughout the project 11-foot travel lanes, 2-foot bicycle buffers, and 5-foot bicycle lanes with a minimum of 5-foot sidewalks on both sides. That's typical section remains throughout the project, including some wider sidewalks as you get to the east end of the project near Main Street, and with the exception of about 600 feet of roadway near Greeley Street, we're able to provide that 2-foot bicycle buffer between the bicycle lane and the travel lanes. So we have some updated graphics showing the recent 25% design submittal that was made to Mass DOT, demonstrating the 5-foot bicycle lanes that we're able to include in the project with that 2-foot buffer. Also, a component of the project is improving site distance wherever possible, cutting back some of that existing vegetation that takes away some of the sight lines, and also relocating signs and utility poles where feasible in order to help improve those sight lines. Another improvement that is new to the project is the installation of LED stop signs with warning lights. There are 2 existing LED stop signs on Sterling Street for the Sterling Street approaches. The RSA was conducted, and one of the improvements that we're able to include from the RSA is installation of these signs also on the Greeley Street intersection, which will help enhance the signage that's out there today. We're also proposing enhanced pavement markings, high visibility pavement markings for both the crosswalks and the, for the bicycle lane crossings wherever we cross the side streets. So examples can be shown here on the intersections of Maple Street, Parker Street, and also the ladder style crosswalk for the mid-block crossing on Sterling Street, just east of Parker Street. We are hoping to get this project assigned a tip year. And part of that reason is because it is an HSIP intersection crash cluster intersection with Greeley Street. And this project does improve the safety improvements to a major roadway within the region. While doing that, we're able to improve the ADA compliant sidewalks and bring those up to compliance, and the wheelchair ramps. And the bicycle lanes help provides multimodal access for all roadway users. And the roadway does provide regional connectivity, being Route 62. So we feel that this is an important project for the region and for the town. We also want to note that this is the 4th highest project, scored project on the committee's tip currently. And I believe it's the highest that's not currently assigned a tip year. So we feel that those are reasons to get this assigned a tip year going forward. And finally, just to provide a current status of the design, we did perform the road safety audit in conjunction with Mass DOT last year. That was performed in April and finalized in June of 2021. We've made our 25% submittal, both including the design right-of-way. That was submitted in October. And we received comments back from Mass DOT actually just last week on the 25% design and right-of-way. So we're looking to move forward and have internal common resolution meetings with Mass DOT this winter, with the eye of hopefully holding a public hearing in June of this year, so that way we can move on through final design and hopefully have the project advertised, ready to be advertised as soon as 2024, if obviously the funding allows. And based on our latest estimate with the 25% design, we're estimating construction cost of approximately $4.7 million. So with that, just here to answer any questions on any of the updates that we've provided for the committee.
I have a question. I don't know how to raise my hand though.
Sure, yes.
Beth Paxton. First of all, congratulations on great scoring and great work and a very good design. I just have a general question I'm curious about. I know that one of the things that has been recently distributed to MJTC is the traffic calming website. I haven't had a chance to really look at it yet, but did you find any areas where traffic calming infrastructure was, it was in consideration? And did you use any traffic calming infrastructure in your project?
Right. As far as traffic calming, I think you're probably referring to like speed tables or maybe bump outs and those sort of things. So those aren't included in this design at this time. It hasn't come up so far, but I appreciate the question. And, some other options may be like bump outs or something like that. That may prove to be difficult with also the bicycle accommodations on the road, but it's not something that's necessarily included here. But with the narrow travel lanes, 11-foot travel lanes, those do show to at least provide some sort of traffic calming provisions typically. So that is included here.
Thank you.
We do have some enhanced signage on the roadway, both that will help calm traffic and also help improve the intersection safety at Greeley Street as well.
Thanks.
If I can jump in here with just a comment, I think Beth was also referring to the MassDOT just announcing their Safe Speeds website regarding reducing speeds on roadways for creating safer roads. I don't know if that's anything that needs to be looked at just to make sure that the designs you're putting forward may meet some of what MassDOT is trying to push forward in terms of reducing crashes and reducing fatalities and slowing cars down on some of the roads. But, we have a handout later on that just announcing this strategy or this website being put together by MassDOT.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions with regards to that presentation, or shall we move forward? Seeing and hearing none.
I just want to jump in again one more time. If any other communities out there want to have a presentation on their project, please let us know. We can schedule it for next month. I'm more than happy to talk about any project, and it can be at any phase. It doesn't have to be a 25% design. It's just, it could be just for what the town's plans are and what you're looking to do, just so that we can get the information out to the board members and they understand what the project is. It gives a little more meaning to the discussion when they have actually seen something and know where this is all occurring.
Thank you, Brad. Moving forward to fiscal year 23 Unified Work Planning Program. I'm thinking Sherry is going to speak to that.
Yep, she is.
Sherry, you're on.
So for the first time, I think I have more to say on this than Brian does on the tip, which is very unusual. But so the UPWP update, as of today, which was the last day to submit project requests, we have 6 total project requests. The first one's from Leominster at Jungle Road and the Route 117 intersection. The second one is Townsend for the Route 119, Route 13 intersection study. Third one is Shirley, where they're requesting a freight or truck study. This is actually going to be somewhat of a partnership with Lunenburg, where they're trying to study the heavy truck traffic that's coming from the highway and a lot of the new development in the area of the Route 2 corridor. And then we also heard from Lunenburg, where they also, along with Shirley, want the freight truck study. So we're kind of merging that into one, but right now we're considering them 2 separate requests. Lunenburg had submitted 2 additional requests for Chase Road and the Northfield Road intersection, and as well as Route 13 and West Street intersection. So the project determination letters are expecting to go out to those communities prior to the March 16th MPO meeting. We'll also have draft write-ups for each of the projects that were chosen pretty much at that time. So that's all I have for project requests. Next up on our UPWP schedule is the equity analysis that I had on tap for February. So we did a full analysis for all of the projects that we've done over the past 5 years, because we have not chosen our projects for the fiscal year 23. We have not included those in the analysis at this time. But the analysis has two components to it. We have a social analysis, which incorporates the Title VI and environmental justice populations in the communities. And then we also have a geographic analysis where we show the locations of most of the projects that have been done. So I know this will be a little bit more in detail at next week's MPO meeting, but just for the time being, we basically took census data for all of our communities, and federal highway, FTA, and the state all have different categories for Title VI and environmental justice. So we incorporated all three different measurements and found that 10 out of our 22 communities actually meet all three. So FHWA Title VI community, FTA Title VI community, and environmental justice community. So 10 out of 22 communities meet all three criteria. So we tended to focus a little bit heavier on those 10 communities. Of those 10 communities, we had 8 where we had done community-specific projects over the last 5 years. The 2 that were not done were Clinton and Harvard. That doesn't mean that we didn't work in those communities, that they just did not have any community-specific projects done over the last 5 years. So that might be something to consider when we are doing projects in the future. As far as the geographic equity, we have a map that will be shown next week that shows where we had done those projects in those communities and how many, like the cities, Fitchburg, Leominster, Gardner, had more projects over the last 5 years done for them than the other communities may have. And we did find that the communities in the corners of our region, so Groton, Harvard, Clinton, Petersham, Royalston, were not done as heavily over the last 5 years. So that's just another thing to consider while we're looking for projects. And for another thing to mention is the UPWP funding allocation. As Brian stated, for the TIP, because of the new Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, otherwise known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, we had a funding increase, as you can see, I believe it's on the screen, of 128,252 more than we had previously, and that's also an increase from the last year or two, and we actually had a decrease last year, so this is a welcome change, and we can actually now program more projects and tasks because of that. The next meeting for the March MJTC meeting, we are hoping to review the chosen projects with a bit more detail. Hopefully we'll have some descriptions for those at that time, as well as budgets that will go along with those. I believe that's all I have so far on the UPWP update, but does anybody have any questions so far? Great.
Thank you, Sherry. Moving forward to the contract status reports. Brad, I'm assuming take those?
Yeah, for the FTA, I don't have an update at this time on anything there. We're still working on our current work responsibilities for the contract. And for the Transit Authority, I will turn it over to George Haley for his information.
Yes, hi everyone. Beginning of last month, MART has launched a new schedule for Winchendon link. The bus route has been extended to the Haywood Hospital and Montachusett Community College, with one express loop in the morning directly from Winchendon Town Hall all the way to the hospital, Haywood Hospital via 140, and then to downtown Gardner. Been doing very well. We need the word to go around and more people to use it. This is what I have update on my work right now. Any question?
Okay. All right. Under MassDOT 3C, a few items. As you've heard, the MPO will meet next week on this February 16th at 1 p.m. The major action items will be the TIP amendment number 2 we discussed. In addition, will be some more inputs on the TIP and EPWP development, as you also heard today. As mentioned last month, we have a vacant chair position. So I would like to find out what the MJTC would like to do regarding this. There are really two choices. The first is to leave the position open until the next election cycle, which will begin in May with the selection of a nominating committee. That will lead up to a July election. The second possibility is begin the process now to replace the chair, in which case I would seek any nominations from anybody or anyone who'd like to volunteer for the position. And then we could have an election probably in April at the earliest. So I'm asking what the JTC preference would like to be at this point in time.
Brad,
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
no, I just was going to say I'm happy to, if the group is happy with me continuing to do that as the chair through the end of this cycle. I have no problem with that. The only thing I will say is for me personally on the 9th, because I'm assuming that's our next meeting is on the 9th of March.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I'll be able to attend that. I'm still trying to facilitate something around that, but I'm happy to continue until the annual election if that makes sense for the group. Whatever the group needs, I'm happy to do.
Okay. Is there any objection to us maintaining that the open slot and having Dick maintain the chairmanship until the next election cycle? If not, I think that's the cleanest way to go about it. So we'll do that. We'll just leave the chair position vacant and wait till the next election. And thank you, Dick, for stepping up like that. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
The last couple items I have for us is a handout, and as we talked a little bit earlier, on MassDOT website that provides strategy for reducing speeds on roadways for the purpose of creating safer roads. The Safe Speeds homepage states that keeping people safe on Massachusetts roadways is MassDOT's priority. Furthermore, the website states that MassDOT is committed to helping realize safer speeds across the Commonwealth to prevent serious crashes. Our goal is zero fatalities and serious injuries. So part of the strategy addresses the role of setting speed limits, which can be found through the link at the role of speed limits on mass roadways, you see highlighted in blue. The MRPC encourages its member communities to examine the Safe Speeds website to learn more about implementing the safe speed measures and possible opportunities to seek grant funding. So it's an opportunity to maybe address some of the questions you have in your communities regarding speed limits for roads, and this may provide you some strategies to address those questions. There's a second handout, which is basically just a reminder of the MassDOT Shared Streets and Spaces program. This is the 4th round of the program, and applications are due by March 1st and need to be submitted via an online form. The flyer and information is also available on the MRPC website under announcements. And then finally, I just received a press release. Brian, could you share the screen with me for a second? Okay. Share screen, all right. Let me bring this up. Can you see this press release from the Baker and Polito administration?
Yeah.
This just came in to me. It came out on February 3rd, and it talks about the bipartisan infrastructure law and the funding plans for Massachusetts. Basically, Massachusetts anticipates to receive over $9.5 billion over 5 years. So this outlines some of the projects and programs that they are going to be allocating some of those funds to. The first few pages are basically a thank you and a statement from all our elected representatives. But we get down to what is page 5, I believe. Maybe not, maybe page 6. Page 5, it starts with roads and bridges, and it lists some of the funding amounts that are coming into the state. 5.4 billion in total highway formula funds, an 1.8 billion increase in funding for existing programs. 1.4 billion is for new formula programs. Then they get further down to then this money will be used to advance and implement more than 375 highway projects in the state transportation improvement program over the next 5 years. And they've allocated some funds, are looking to invest in some of the projects, some specific projects over this 5-year period. And they're talking specifically fiscal year 2022 to advance 71 highway projects, including this list here that you see. Nothing in our region is on this list, but that doesn't mean it's not part of one of the 71 highway projects. I haven't delved further into that list yet as of this time. But then there's also further on about formula bridge funding that will be increased, and they'll be looking to work on bridges such as you see here: Andover, Bernardson, Beverly, Boston, Braintree. We did get an email from Congressman Trahan's office talking about Fitchburg's Water Street Bridge, and I think it was also Fitchburg's Circle Street Bridge, that they may be receiving some funding from this bill for those projects. Those are projects that are already on our tip, but if they get specific funding earmarked through this the BIL funding, that just frees up more funds for other bridge projects across the state. And then there's also more funds for regional transit authorities. So this the press release just outlines a lot of the funding opportunities that you'll be seeing coming through the new bipartisan infrastructure legislation, including money for the MBTA, rail improvement, and so forth. So I just wanted to make this available to everybody so that they could take a look and see where some of the funds are coming from and where they will be going to. We'll be diving into this in a little bit more depth to find out exactly what's in our region. And as Brian and Sherry mentioned, this then reflects in our TIP target figures and our PL allotment for the UPWP. It is available on the online folder for this meeting that's accessible through our website and through the agenda. There was a link there on the agenda how to get to this folder for the MJTC meeting. And if you can't get it that way, just send me an email and I will forward the press release to you. And I may look to put it also on our website. That is all I have on the MassDOT update. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Brad. I guess the only thing left that we have to do now is just confirm that the next meeting date for the MJTC will be on the 9th.
Yes, at 2:30.
At 2:30?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else for the group that maybe we haven't talked about that you want to talk about before we move to adjournment?
No, just the only thing I can say to remind people, if you do have questions, just give us a shout out. You know, myself, Sherry, Brian, George Snow, just let us know and we can get back to you with some kind of answer and information.
Okay, everybody. Well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. And I thank you all for getting me out of here before 3:30.
So moved, Guy Corbacero.
Thank you.
Jackson second.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.